Isaiah here with Cheeky Scientist, and the results are in fresh off the press on my sticky note. The top 9 careers that PhDs were hired into just this past month in January 2021. Number 1, user experience researcher. A very popular role, and we see PhDs from every background getting into this, especially interdisciplinary PhDs, multidisciplinary PhDs. If you're STEM, non-STEM, you can get into this role. They need you because you have the ability to do research and you understand the difference between qualitative analysis and quantitative analysis, and you can do both, right? You can look at metrics from a user application, and you can deal with people to gather feedback in a focus group. Extremely popular role. You'll work with a user experience team. There's likely going to be product managers, likely to be UX designers. Your background in research analysis, that's what you need to focus on here. You need to focus on understanding what are called customer stories. So how does a person, right, and this could be a patient, this could be a user, when do they come in contact with a company's product or service or treatment, drug, etc.? How do you work that into their daily lifestyle? You need to understand that you're trying to make the experience better for the person. Very popular role, get paid a lot to do it, by the way. But like all of these roles I'm going to talk about, just about every single one of them, you can't just be an analyst. Somebody with a bachelor's or master's can do that, okay? You have to be able to take technical data information, translate it into business data, and communicate it to an executive, a non-technical person, an investor. Number 2, CRA, Contract Research Associate. Very popular. They work usually with contract research organizations. They monitor clinical sites. They do site visits. A lot of them are happening virtually now. Explosion of clinical trials since the pandemic. Very popular role. I just actually got off the phone with somebody saying, I can't get into this role because I have no experience. Every PhD who we saw get into a CRA role had no CRA experience, okay? You can't get into this role, but you have to speak the language of clinical trials. You have to speak the language of industry. You can't use your academic language. They use different terms. Even though you might be working in a clinical lab in academia, they use different terms in industry when it comes to clinical research. CROs have their own language. Do you know what that language is? If not, you're gonna obviously struggle to get into that job. Number 3, business development manager. I love this role for PhDs because it gives you exposure to so many different departments. You'll come into an organization and you'll have to work cross-departmentally with every different department to figure out how to do something big, something strategic. For example, it could be a company that produces a product in Europe and they want to bring it to Canada. They want to bring it to the US. How do they do that? You have to strategically devise a plan to make that happen. They're hiring you for your mind. Do you notice all of these roles? As a PhD, they're hiring you for your mind, not because you're going to be a pair of hands in the lab. You're not going to be pipetting. They don't need you for your technical skills. They need you for your ability to learn technical skills quickly, to translate those technical skills or technical data to business data, right? So you have to learn to do that. If you don't have any training on that, you're gonna struggle. Number 4, R&D researcher. Okay, research scientist, research engineer. We're seeing a lot of senior scientist engineers, a lot of principal scientist engineers, many of them without postdoc experience. We've been breaking down this myth that you need postdoc experience to get into a principal scientist role. You do not. We have a lot of people going right out of getting their PhD into a principal scientist role, and these postdocs that think, oh, well, I have postdoc experience, that's going to pay off. They don't understand it. They can't even accept it mentally. I mean, there's data out in Nature and Cell and Science showing that a postdoc damages your career. These companies, they don't want somebody with more academic experience. They want somebody who can get on-the-job training right now. So get out of your postdoc. The time to transition is now. We're seeing a lot of different positions open up in R&D too, by the way, technical development associate, informatics specialists. Number 5 on the list can be an R&D as well, project manager. There's a R&D project manager. It can be non-R&D project manager. Either way, they need you, especially your ability to work autonomously, to coordinate lots of projects and people. They need you more than ever in industry because of the workforce decentralization that we're seeing, the remote work. Okay, this role is increasingly popular for PhDs because you're highly organized. You document information. You can drive a task to completion. Focus on how you prioritize your work. Be able to talk about that on interviews. That's how you get hired as a project manager. What are we at here? Number 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, regulatory affairs. Guess what's the one thing that always increases, right, in life and business? Regulations. You might hear about some regulations getting cut, but overall, right, the net number of regulations that increases every year always goes up. They need people like you who can read regulatory documents, who can make sure that a company's following regulations. This is especially true in the pharmaceutical industry, the medical device industry, but beyond that as well. The hospitality industry, right? There's new regulations they have to follow, especially since the pandemic. They are hiring PhDs for this. Let's see here. The next one, medical science liaison. You thought that was popular before? Even more popular now. We had a lot of people come to us say, well, I don't want to pursue a medical science liaison career anymore because you can't travel as much. Guess what? Every medical science liaison we saw got hired last year kept their job, right? They would just do virtual visits with the key opinion leaders in the field and clinicians. They were still used for, again, their mind, their ability to learn information, to communicate it, to coordinate. You're extremely valuable in industry in these roles right now, so you have to start seeing yourself that way, but you have to learn how to speak the language of these fields. You have to get access to people working in these fields. You have to be able to set up informational interviews. The problem is most of you have no industry network, and that's really what's holding you back. Data scientist, okay? Extremely popular role. The difference, again, coming back full circle to what I started with, between a data analyst and a data scientist is the ability of the data scientist, right? It's not just modeling. It's not just maybe being able to learn Python. It's the ability of the data scientist to have conversations with non-technical executives and investors, to be able to crunch numbers, but then to translate the technical results into results that are actionable in business. Extremely important concept. We do a lot of this training on being able to communicate business, technical data into business data, that translation. We do a lot of this training in the Cheeky Scientist Association. You can go to PhDs Get Hired to learn more about the association. We also have a special webinar coming up this upcoming Thursday on these top careers and many other top careers. The last one, number 9, medical writer. Medical writer is an umbrella term for any type of writer or editor in industry. There's a spectrum of technical writing all the way to more marketing or education-based writing. Every company out there needs content produced from a credible author, a credible source. That's you. Very often you'll be in an editing role where you'll be taking content that less technical people are writing, and you'll be ensuring its credibility. You'll be taking it to the next level. This is a great role to do, again, with the kind of workforce decentralization that we're seeing. Those are the 9 top roles we saw PhDs get hired into. Focus on them. Quit wasting your efforts. You can't hit a target you don't set. Choose 1, 2, or 3 of these as your targets. Start zeroing in and start creating a plan to get hired into them. If you need help with that plan, learn about the Cheeky Scientist Association. You can learn about Cheeky Scientist in the first place by going to cheekyscientist.com or go to phdsgethired.com to learn about our flagship program, the Cheeky Scientist Association. As always, remember your value as a PhD and start thinking and acting like a successful industry professional.